At springtime, Thomas would travel down the line from Marron to High Farm, a farm especially used for producing the best meats in the west side of Sodor. Thomas would pull a stopping passenger train from his junction to Marron and then take High Farm's general produce to the town at the junction stations on the way back. Percy had been the main goods engine on Thomas's branch line for many years, but he recently felt quite overworked. Once one ship at the harbour was gone, leaving unbelievable tons of goods, another ship came in ready to leave their loads to Percy.
"Luckily for you," said the Fat Controller, "I've bought a new engine especially to work at the harbour and leave you to work elsewhere. And she should be coming now."
And almost on cue, a high-pitched whistle tooted in the distance, and a red tank engine arrived in the station.
"Hello,"
the engine said to Thomas with a broad smile.
"You must be Thomas."
"Yes," replied Thomas. He found the engine quite welcoming.
"I'm Rosie. I've heard a lot about you, and I love hearing all about your adventures."
"Thank you," answered Thomas. As they puffed along, Rosie stared at him with the same broad, still smile. She wouldn't stop asking questions. Thomas was finding it all quite annoying. By midday, Thomas had to stop to take care of other jobs, and Thomas rushed away, smiling with relief. Thomas didn't like Rosie asking so many questions. He knew asking questions was part of learning, but it felt like Rosie wanted to know all there is to know about him, not her job. He didn't feel comfortable about that. So, he spoke to the Fat Controller at the junction.
"She's a young engine, Thomas. You know what engines her age are like."
"But sir..."
"She just needs to get used to working here. Percy needs a harbour shunter, and Rosie's class fits the bill. She was the best deal I could get."
As much as Thomas didn't like it, he decided to be content. Late that afternoon, Thomas was waiting at Marron to collect some farm supplies for High Farm, when Harold whooshed in with a warning.
"There have been warnings of a landslide near the hills, so be careful on the way to High Farm."
"No worries, Harold," replied Thomas as Harold buzzed away. "Storms don't bother me."
"Oh, me?"
"Why are you still following me?" asked Thomas.
"I was told you needed my help with the next job."
"I was never told about this," said Thomas. All the same, Thomas departed, and Rosie followed him cheekily. With an anxious glance, Thomas tried to go as fast as he could. Thomas tried to ignore Rosie, hoping she would give up, but Rosie would press on or pop a piston trying. Thomas and his crew were so worried about Rosie that they didn't notice that a lazy signalman was leaning on the switch that directed them onto the wrong line. Too late, they realized they were going down an unfamiliar route. Out of nowhere, a monstrous landslide buried Thomas in soil, washed away from the hills.
"Rosie!"
called a voice. It was the Fat Controller.
"What are you doing chasing Thomas?"
he said crossly.
"You were meant to be at the harbour."
"She's been following me all the way to High Farm," answered Thomas. The Fat Controller stood in shock. Then he mopped his brow.
"Well, Rosie,"
said the Fat Controller,
"being a chatterbox is one thing, but starting another engine is not only procrastination on my railway, but very uncomfortable for the engine you stoked. You shall work in the harbour until I can trust you to work well with Thomas."
"Yes, sir,"
replied Rosie. And as she left, she let out a timid,
"Sorry, Thomas."
Thomas was too annoyed to reply. From that moment on, Rosie kept to herself. Whenever she tried to speak, she was cautious about how long she spoke for. The other engines were friendly to her, but they all followed Thomas's advice to not get too friendly towards Rosie. In that episode of Thomas Rewritten, the story was written and audio edited by Christopher O'Shea. Credit goes to NWR number 6 Music, Robert and Peter Hartshorn, Silver Dragon TV, Francis S., and Lee Schwayton for the music, and Jerome Spitzer and Speed to the West for the sound effects. This has been a Steam-Powered-Cyborg production. The characters are owned by Wilbert and Christopher Audrey, Hit Entertainment, and Mattel.